All right. Hi, everybody. Can you hear us, hopefully? Yes. All right. Thank you for joining us for our January book discussion. That is the teen part of the January Reading Together Challenge at the Boston Public Library. You guys can find out more about that at bpl.org. But today we are going to be reading and talking about March Book 1 for the theme A Book from the Past. I am Laura. I am a teen librarian from Central, and I am here with Michelle.
Hello.
Danny.
Hi.
And Celia.
Hello.
So we're going to talk to you guys today about March, which is a graphic novel adaptation of John Lewis's early life and his journey to becoming an activist. If you guys have any questions while we're talking, feel free to drop them in the chat. But I thought starting out, it would be interesting just to hear everyone's thoughts about the narrative structure, kind of going back and forth between present time when this was written and the past. I picked these two panels because they kind of led into each other, where he hears the phone ringing in present day, and then it transitions into this period from the past where he's hearing the phone ringing there. I know for me, books that go back and forth in time a lot of times aren't my favorite, but I thought it worked pretty well here. So I don't know if anyone else had thoughts on that choice.
I really liked it. I thought even how it started in the beginning with something small, like the little chickens in his office, and then talked about him raising chickens on his family farm. yeah, I thought it was a nice way to like feel like you were kind of getting like the whole scope of his life. So I liked it.
Yeah, it didn't feel like someone just forcing like a lecture onto you. It felt more of like a part of the story through and through, just because, especially like right off the bat when the mom's like, or the grandmother was like, I wanted them to know a piece of their history, and like we literally walked with them through it, and yeah, it was a great touch to it.
Yeah, I agree with Laura. I don't usually like books that go back and forth in time because I get confused really easily. But I think because this was a graphic novel, and you had the pictures to help like put you in like time and place, that was really helpful, and I liked that. Yeah.
Awesome. That's a good transition to the next slide, because the next few slides are just some that we pulled out just to show kind of how powerful the art is and how the art really interacted well with the story. I think choosing to illustrate it only in black and white took a little bit of getting used to at first, just because I'm not so used to seeing that. But again, I think it worked really well. This panel I pulled because I thought the way that they filled in his body with these words of what he was reading was a really interesting way of showing how religion was kind of this path forward for him that really inspired him, but then led him to something even greater in terms of activism. I don't know if you guys have thoughts about that or just about like the black and white art style in general.
The words on him, sorry.
Oh, no, go.
So the words on him, like, just symbolizing like how much that, the book, the writing impacted him, and how it was literally a part of him and him trying to find, as we see in the future, like, how do I combine this that's so important to me, forward in my work and my mission.
Yeah, I think I thought that I wasn't like super excited that it was all in black and white, because I was like, oh, is this all gonna feel really dated? But I think especially because even the like future is also a little bit dated at this point, but I think it did make it all feel like this was like a continuation of history and not just like, oh, this is like the past, but now we're in the future and it's like totally cut in half. Like, I felt like it made it feel like, yep, these are like, I think he goes on to his like continual fight, not just then, but what he's continued to do and what he's like, even influenced so many people to do. Like, it's not like stagnant, it's like moved. So I don't know. I liked it for sure.
Yeah, I liked it too. But the cover, I have the book here.
Nice.
You guys can see that. The cover is like so colorful and like detailed and like beautiful. So it's just like, I'm like sometimes a little bit disappointed that like, I guess maybe even like some of the illustrations could be in color, but the black and white like is also beautiful. It's like super bold, and you can definitely see like the emotion and the drama like within the black and white.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
All right, next slide. So I think this one again, this panel, I thought just did a really good job of using that empty space to show how he felt kind of separated from the other parts of the community, particularly how the Black students were treated differently than the white students and didn't have the same opportunities, and just how that black and white art kind of lent itself to this. We can kind of keep moving through the art ones. I don't know that there's like a ton to say about all of them, just some good examples.
I really liked how like some of the panels and even some of the like full pages, like some the background was white and some the background was black. So like those really stood out against like if there was one panel that had like a black background like on a white page, I really liked those. And then the pages that were like all black, I think there was one with like, I don't know if we're going to show that one. I think we are. This one with like just his face and like the few words.
Yeah.
Like that was just like a really like dramatic page.
Yeah, for sure. This one I thought was kind of interesting. The one that we just passed. Oh, we can skip that one. Just because I thought that scribble behind his head to show kind of the emotions and the anxiety was really similar to some of the choices that were made in Speak, which we read last month.
Yeah, I definitely felt a lot of those vibes. Obviously, very different stories, but just like of the starkness, kind of like, and the meaningfulness of like how they,
like why this had to go into like a graphic novel adaptation, because it's one thing for you to read this, but to see the art of like, no, this is the stress that we're feeling right now. It's not just like, oh, like it's, you know, it's in ink and that happened. Like, no, like you need to see like what it felt like.
All right, we can go to the next one. If you guys see me squinting, it's just me trying to read the text on my screen. This one I think again is just a really good example of what Celia was talking about in terms of using the backgrounds to really show the story. I don't know that I would have expected that you could really get across the idea of them shutting all the lights out and them being in the dark so effectively in just like a black and white graphic novel. More thoughts? Keep going.
Yeah, I even love all the shadows in that picture. Like it makes it feel like you're really in that, and you like feel it. You're like, yes, when you're in like a store or something, or in everything, and all the lights are off, and you can just like see the shadows. It's really cool.
Impressive. All right, we can keep going through. This one, maybe even not so much the art, so much as the lettering, which I don't know how much you guys read graphic novels. I know there are a few of us in teen services that read them a lot, and I think letterers often don't get their due. But the way that they use the scribbles to show that this judge just has made up his mind, he's not listening to what they have to say, is like an interesting kind of artistic choice, but also a lettering choice. So I just wanted to give that shout out. But again, also, I think, I don't know if any of you guys have anything to say about this. We're going to talk about obviously some of the activism and ways in which things have and have not changed further into the slides, but this is definitely kind of a good starting point to have some thoughts about that.
I mean, yeah. I think, even how everything kind of kicked off with the death of Emmett Till one summer, like, and that kind of sparked, for him at least, a feeling of like, oh, I need to do something more. I think that was, a lot of people felt that way this last year with the death of George Floyd, and I was like, oh wow, this is very similar to what I think a lot of even like conversations that we've had with teens in recently about like that kind of signaling to them, oh, there's an injustice here, and so I thought that was really kind of crazy how similar it is, but also sad at how similar it is. And even his his kind of like going into politics because he felt like there was some corruption there. I'm like, yes. I think we've all maybe felt a little the last couple of years like politicians weren't always working for the benefit of the people that they serve. Or for the large majority of the people that they serve. They're probably looking for the benefit of a very small minority. So yeah, definitely saw that for sure.
All right, we can go to the next one and we'll talk more about all of that as we go. I don't know if you wanted to talk about this one a little more, Celia? Since you pulled this page, I think.
Oh, I can't see it yet.
Oh, it's the one of him on the black
okay.
background.
Yeah. I think it was just like the visual for me, like the shadow on, or the light on his face, and like the shadow on his side, and like the whole black page. Even like, you know how some of the panels have like a white border.
Yeah.
But like this page, it was like black all the way to the edges. So it just really helps like portray like, you know, what he's feeling like at this moment. Like it's really like it's just like bold and straightforward, I guess.
It's very literal of like just in the darkness, and then this is the way out. Like you can see it.
Right.
You can see him seeing the light, so to speak.
Yeah. Like you literally can, shining onto him. All right, next slide. Oh, this one got a little cut out. But I think Celia and I both pulled out this one. And if you see the full thing, it's 3 different hands to show racism, poverty, and war. So at the top, it is a noose. At the middle, for poverty, it's a shaking hand. And for war, it was an amputated hand. And I just thought this was a really like simple but really powerful way to illustrate those 3 concepts in the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was one of the pages that made me like have that moment, like this. I mean, like this is happening now. Like all of this is happening now.
Yeah.
And like reading it and like getting ready for this discussion, like in the days leading up to yesterday, the inauguration, like, and you know, obviously the book starts out, he's at Barack Obama's inauguration in 2009. So it was just like, I had read this like years ago, and like when I read it again now, like I didn't remember that, and it was just like shocking.
Yeah, for sure. We can go to the next one. You guys can keep talking about this stuff as we go through.
I think I was just thinking like it definitely was interesting reading it. I just finished it not that long ago, and it was definitely interesting reading it coming up against this inauguration, because it like I think there's definitely a little bit more. I feel like the hopefulness is a little bit more tentative this time around. I think, and even in the book at the end, like, you know, it doesn't end the book like everything is good now, but I think it definitely ends with like, and like we're on the upswing, and you know, obviously there's been massive improvements to people's lives since then, but at the same time, I think there's a little bit. It was like if they only knew what was to come after this, I would think it would be a little bit. Yeah, it was really interesting to read it in this time. No.
Yeah. So these panels are kind of moving more into talking about that and activism and the state of the world and what John Lewis did and kind of what we're seeing today. This panel comes pretty early on, but for me, I think just seeing this where they're just trying to kind of have a protest and they are immediately faced with aggression and violence and anger. It just felt like this could have been drawn today about something that's happening now. So it was very powerful in a depressing way.
Yeah. I think even we like right there when you were like, "This is an unlawful assembly." I'm like, I think someone said that on the news like last week. Like reading that was like, whoa, oh man, people haven't even changed the words in which they are discriminating against people. It is the same.
Yeah. All right, we can go to the next one. Keep moving along. So this one, hold on, I have to
clarified in the chat. You are right. It is a little sad and mad.
So this is the Emmett Till panel. I kind of cut some of this just because I didn't know that necessarily any of us wanted to look at the drawing of Emmett Till's corpse again live on stream, because that was pretty graphic. But again, I don't know if any of you guys want to talk about how this section kind of made you feel in light of, again, how things changed and how they haven't.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think it's fresh. It's sad and a little bit maddening. And even at the end, they said that part, and I was like, I didn't even know that later that the people who killed Emmett Till, like a month later, admitted that they killed him, even after they had gotten acquitted. And kids, I'm not sure if you know, but once you have been tried for something, there's a law that you cannot be tried for the same thing again. So even after they admitted it, there's nothing under the law that you can do about it, which is wild, but also, frustrating even now to think about all of the ways that people have been, like, the evidence that we have seen of people kill people, and white people just getting away with it. It's wild, and it is. I think you can only things like this, like resurgences of things happen like this because people say this is not right, and hopefully people continue to be vocal about the injustices they see.
Yeah.
When I saw the panel, I remembered I'd only learned, so backstory, I grew up on the west part of the country, and I'd only learned about Emmett Till as a TA in a critical culture, race, and gender, like a 101 studies class. And he was like showing it to, it's a 101 class, like, there's hundreds of kids in there, like it's a requirement most cases, but never had I seen the class of, like, I went to a mostly, like, white university, like, go dead silent and actually, like, pay attention to what was being said or taught that day. And in revisit, like, that's what it reminded me when I saw the panel, but then also just, forward to today of, like, and people, like, wonder and are mad at, like, the Black Lives Movement. Like, this has been, like, the reason the mom wanted his image out there was, like, to see, like, this is what's happening, and, like, to have people, like, be upset that Black Lives Matter is a movement right now. It's just like, well, no, it's been something that people have not been aware of. I mean, I'm telling you, like, I grew up on the west side of part of the country, and, like, our schools or whatever, our culture do really well of, like, just pushing this under the rug.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Next slide, I guess. I feel very awkward saying next slide after all these powerful things that people are saying, but that's what this is. So these ones, I guess this was just the panels about segregation in schools ending and how he thinks he's so excited and he kind of thinks everything's going to change and the people around him aren't as excited about it. I think just, again, finding that balance between being hopeful and being excited that maybe this will change while also being realistic can be really hard. And I think we see those generational kind of splits today. But I think to me it's also like important that there are young people that are kind of overly hopeful like this, because then they can keep pushing for maybe more than other people might think to ask for. I don't know.
I was doing some like research, like getting ready for this, like on John Lewis, like when he was born, stuff like that. And I found out that he was like so young. Like when all of this started, like when he organized the sit-ins in Nashville, he was only 19. I had no idea he was so young. And that was just like so cool. You know, like he's like an icon. Like he's a leader. And it was just cool to see that he got started so young. And when we're doing this, like for teens, for young people, I think, you know, it was like inspirational to see that. And even yesterday, like at the inauguration, seeing Amanda Gorman, the poet laureate, she's 22 and like amazing, so amazing. And there are so many different ways to like go about this and have your voice heard. Like John Lewis was like right in it, like all up in it. But you can like use your art, your poetry, social media, like it's just it's inspiring.
Definitely.
And use it from the library. She got started writing poetry at her library, at the LA Public Library.
Awesome.
So, guys.
Yes.
That's what she started.
We have to have that library panel in here, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Lauren.
All right. Next slide. And this one I think is a really good follow-up point after what we were just talking about him kind of feeling like he's not doing enough and that he needs to do more, which I think has been a pretty common feeling, I think always, but I think maybe particularly in the last couple of years, a lot of people have kind of been like, am I doing enough, or is what I'm doing helpful enough? I think Celia's point was really good, that like you should focus on what you're good at. And he found out what he was good at was really getting himself out there and being at the forefront. But if what you're good at is art and using your voice and sharing things through poetry or writing or drawing, that's like really powerful and good too. I don't know. Other thoughts? I think like particularly from the perspective of librarians who maybe tend to be a little bit more introverted, I think it is useful to know that you can use your voice in a lot of different ways as long as you're using it.
Yeah, and I think even seeing how it didn't, you know, he didn't obviously come from a lot of money. He didn't have a ton of it.
Yeah.
He wasn't like a trained activist, whatever that means, but he just had an idea and had like a couple of friends and like was a part of something amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, with whatever you have, you can do something.
Yeah. And if you need resources, you can get them at your library.
Exactly.
All right, next slide. This one I just was really affected me, that they had to practice what is it like if we peacefully protest and people are attacking us. Again, unfortunately, felt just like very reminiscent of what I've been seeing on social media, where people are like, here's your list of things you need to bring if you're protesting. Here's how you react if this happens, if this happens. So like really disheartening that this had to happen at all in the first place, and that it's still such a concern, particularly for marginalized groups that are protesting.
Yeah. It did kind of give me those vibes of, I don't know how, during a lot of the protests this summer of kids, it was I feel like it was especially a lot of like teens and like people in their early 20s being like, here are all of your rights, and write your phone number on your arm in case your phone gets taken away, and make sure you have a bottle of water in case you get pepper sprayed in the face, and like all of this stuff, that helpful things that people were sharing with each other from experience, and to help each other out. Like, part of it is nice that there's a community around that, and then the other part of it is like, man, I wish you didn't have to think about these things.
It was interesting to kind of think about how social media has broadened that community and given us more resources than they had when they were practicing, because not even just like teens from America sharing things with each other, but I think I saw a lot of like protesters from, I want to say, Hong Kong, who were saying, you know, here's what we've been doing over here, and here's how to stay safe while you're doing it over there. So it's kind of like, well, it really is awful that this still happens. It is nice to see the people who are fighting backing each other up on each other's causes. I don't know. I'm trying to find some positives.
No, I mean, also they used to do this in like churches, which is also like, I don't know, you could say that could be loaded, but I think it's I think it's cool that I think sometimes, it was cool that these like churches were letting them kind of practice all of these things that maybe they wouldn't have allowed in the daytime. So I don't know. I don't want to talk about religion.
In Atlanta, I don't remember the name of the museum, but there's a certain exhibit where they have the chairs lined up, and you sit down and you hold on to these like bars, and it stimulates like the vibration, and you put on these headphones and you get to hear like this is what they like endured, and like the point is like for you to try and see like how long can you like hold on, because it'll stop like whenever you let go. I remember like doing it and just like crying, just like hearing everything, and they have like tissues ready and stuff, but afterwards like the two like guides like talk to you like, like they spent like months like preparing for this, like this didn't just up and happen, like they spent months. So once I saw this panel or saw these pages, I was like, oh my god, like this is that group, this is what he did, this is like that work that was put in. But it was, even though it was just a simulation, it was disgusting. Like, disgusting.
Taff says maybe the National Center for Civil and Human Rights.
Maybe it's next to the Coca-Cola Museum. That's what I remember. And I was like, oh wow, what a
dichotomy.
Yeah, quite the juxtaposition.
All right, we can move to the next slide. And this, I think, was probably like actually the exact next page in the book, but showing that there were some people who couldn't not respond back with violence when they were attacked. And I appreciated that there didn't seem to be a lot of judgment about that. And it was kind of like, okay, our movement isn't the right movement for you. You can leave. We understand. I don't know. Any other thoughts? I think how we deal with these things, there's not one right way.
Yeah, this is the one that, like, before the page before I was like, oh, I wonder if we're gonna talk about it, but this is the one that like really stuck with me, where it's like you have to like figure it out, fish it out, like just admiring the attention to detail of like, this is gonna work this way, but also like wondering like what the narrative is right now, where it's like, because I grew up like learning these stories, right? But then I've also like gone and heard certain messages of like, it's not the Martin Luther King time. So I'm just like, I was just curious. This just brought questions of like, okay, like where are we right now?
Well, you even like you look at Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and they both had the same goals, but different ways of kind of going about it. And I think that does really speak to like it takes all kinds to make change, and that it is what it is. I don't know that I could stay calm, but I really like respect everything that they were able to do, because I don't think I would be able to do it.
Wow.
But,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think it does. I think kind of what Laura said. I agree. I think it
hot-headed librarian introverts.
I mean, I don't know what I would do in that situation, honestly. I don't even know if I would honestly have like the courage to put myself in the situation to test it, you know?
Yeah.
Like you have to kind of be ready, and I don't at this current moment I don't know if I could do that right now. And yeah, I think we're all going to use the things that our own gifts to help in our own voices to help in different ways.
And it's particularly hard to be ready when you like haven't really left your house in 9 months.
Truly.
True. The panel, the image that really stood out to me in here was that teaching us how to, you know, fight back or resist, like the keeping eye contact part. That part really, like, you know, like to like, you know, take down your enemy, like through, like, you know, you need to make him aware that like they are doing this to a human.
Yeah.
And what y'all brought up right now, like what does that look like right now when we live like in this literal screen world, but also where like things are happening and we sometimes like show support by literally bringing awareness and like recording things, and like how does that help or hinder this, like, you know, I'm a person, like is the camera helping, like, you know, like keeping you accountable, or like is that eye contact like lost? Like, but when I saw that panel, just like, you know, that humanitarian, like you need to remind you that you're human, like that just
And there are, I think, so many, I'm sure Celia can speak to this too, so if she wants to, I'll hand it to her, but I feel like so many young adult books being published in the past 3-4 years that really speak to that a lot and what this looks like today. I don't know.
I can't hear Celia.
Uh-oh, did we lose Celia's audio?
Yeah, I can't hear her either.
Oh no. Please hold. All right, we'll keep moving. Celia, just keep trying to say things and hopefully you'll pop back in. But you can also try popping things in the chat and we can read them for you.
Oh, Chris said try talking again, Celia. Oh, no. Okay.
All right.
Sorry, practice sign language, go.
All right. We'll keep going. Yeah, Celia, just type things in Twitch and we will read them as you. Again, sorry that you are just seeing my eyeballs because I'm so blind. There are a few instances of this in the story, of them talking to like store or restaurant owners or even local politicians, and them being like, if you give us this amount of time, we will do something, but you need to give us this time. And that was one thing that kind of stuck out to me, as I understand why they're agreeing with this, but also it kind of feels like they don't deserve the time to make these changes. Like, make them now, you know?
Yeah. That definitely also made me think about now.
For sure.
It definitely was like, yeah, why are we waiting on things? Like, you can change this right now. This doesn't take a lot to do.
And I think it's like particularly young people that hear that, whether it's racism or climate change or any of the things that young people are dealing with, and saying we want more dedication and more change now, and being told by the largely middle-aged people in power, no, you have to wait, we can't do everything at once, we need to make sure everyone's happy. Like, that's very frustrating.
Yeah. Celia asked in the chat, what's some of our favorite books with activism as the main theme that have been lately? I haven't read a ton, I'm not gonna lie, but Brandy Colbert, who was an author that we had come speak virtually earlier this year, she had a book out called The Voting Booth, and it's part activism, also kind of part of love story, and so I am a sucker for a love story all the time, I'm not gonna lie, so I like that.
Nice. You can go, Danny.
I'm a big nonfiction buff, so my
Danny.
go-to is Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. There's a young adult adaptation to it, and to this day, like, that book, his work really like sticks with me. And coming from a criminal justice undergrad background, I actually got to see him speak, like, at school. Just his mission and his dedication, and working towards righting the wrongs of, for those who don't know, his work is righting the wrongs of, like, people who are wrongfully incarcerated for life, Black men who are wrongfully incarcerated for life. That's what he dedicates his team to, and sometimes they win and sometimes they don't, and I highly recommend it. It's just very inspiring on revolving thing of this. It's like, just, it's hard, and you can't give up on it. It's just an uphill battle, but you just gotta go through it.
I'm glad you went first, because mine kind of hooks off of yours. Like, one of the last books I read in 2020 was This Is My America by Kim Johnson, which is a YA contemporary that the main character, her father, is a Black man in jail for a crime for life that he didn't commit. And she every week writes to the book's version of the Innocence Project to try to get their help getting her dad out of jail, proving that he was innocent. And then there's kind of this added mystery that comes up a little later in the book. But so it deals with kind of a fictionalized version of Stevenson's work, but it also really deals with a lot of what we've been talking about with this, with like how much things have stayed the same, just in a different way. We've got a recommendation for A Good Kind of Trouble by Lisa Moore Ramey in the chat from Clarified as well.
Doesn't that also have to do with John Lewis? Am I making that up? I could be making that up. That was just his phrase. So I'm Celia.
I mean, it's inspired.
Yeah, maybe it's inspired by him. I'm not sure.
All right. Is Celia back yet?
We're going to read it to find out. Thank you, Clarified.
Oh, I can't hear her.
Nope.
I see her, but I can't hear her.
Celia, tell us in the chat what your favorite one was. And we'll keep going to the next slide. All right. So again, I think this is just like more of the same of what we've been talking about, just really upsetting no matter what, but also kind of upsetting because it felt like something you could see on the news today. I don't know. We can go to the next slide. I want to make sure we get to some of the slightly less dark stuff at the end too. This one I don't know How I Resist, Celia recommends, which is an anthology written by a bunch of different people. I think there's maybe a lot of younger authors in that too, right?
Yeah,
maybe?
I definitely seen that one.
And that Jason Reynolds is in there. Obviously, we recommend anything by Jason Reynolds. Mm-hmm. That's a blanket recommendation. This panel. Oh, sorry, did I interrupt you?
Oh, no. That like reminded me. Ta-Nehisi Coates is coming out with a YA adaptation of his memoir, and I think that'll be out soon. And he is a great writer, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to do with activism and race. And so that's something that you're interested in. I haven't read it, but I highly suggest already.
And the Hate U Give prequel by Angie Thomas just came out. It's coming out in a couple days.
Yes.
Very new release. But that sounds really good. So recommend that too. I feel like this was near the end of the activism panels, and I guess I chose to end this on a real bleak note that I don't know how much we want to talk about or not, but just the idea that sometimes the people who are in positions of power and authority are also very much entrenched in supporting white supremacy. All right, moving forward.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
Do with that what you will.
Next slide.
We can talk about that now. He's not the president anymore, right? Can we not talk about it?
Looking to keep our job. This one, I think, also same idea, but also just the art. And this one was, again, just like showing how the black and white art was able to portray this barrier between them. I don't know. I'm just very impressed with how effectively they got everything across with just using black, white, and gray.
Black and white. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we can go to the next slide. And this is, again, kind of the same thing, and also what we touched on a little bit before, that sometimes you have these people in positions of power who either they say they're on your side, or maybe internally they really are on your side, but because they want to please everybody, they're not willing to make big stands or make the changes that need to be made, which, again, a frustrating thing that I think we still see a lot of today, and is why young people should get involved in local activism, local politics.
Yeah.
Get involved in your city, because you can really make a change.
I think that was even evident in the beginning of the book when he was trying to get his parents involved, and his parents are really scared. Yeah. And they were like, actually, like, we're too scared, we're not going to do this. And they believed in him, and they believed in what he was doing, but they just felt like they kind of had too much on the line.
Yeah.
They had, and for their, like, and he felt that for them too. And he was like, okay, well, I am young, and I don't have, to worry about as much. Like, I'm going to do this on my own. And, yeah, I think both of those things are, right? Like, it can be for reasons that are a little bit more, this is a little bit more like duplicitous than his parents.
For sure.
But I think, yeah, there's a reason why young people are always at the forefront of this, because they have so much to offer. So.
Yeah. All right, next slide. And this one, okay, this might actually be the end of this section. This one I thought was really interesting. Just kind of looking at social media now and how they just kind of had like TV and newspapers then, but the idea of people blaming some overarching, like, the media is making this up because they want us to be mad, or they like are creating something that's not there. And just interesting to see how even as the media has changed so much. This idea still exists.
Yeah.
Staged for the convenience of the Columbia broadcast system.
And just like the ice dripping from the speech bubble to really just show his like
and his like crazy eye.
Like you can just hear it.
Yeah. 100%.
Hear a certain someone from a certain past with certain hair. It's like, this is not real.
All right, next slide. And again, this is sort of a different track, but just the idea of I think this was a politician, even though he's bringing religion into it, trying to bring everyone together just in let's pray together, but not making any actual change. So again, unfortunately relatable.
Yeah.
We can keep it going. I think Celia pulled this panel, but she is muted. So I don't know if you guys have anything you want to talk about with this. This is one of the few panels that we've had so far.
See it yet.
Now.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, we can hear you.
Okay, cool.
It's the panel you pulled of him kind of singing to himself as he gets ready.
Yeah, I think that was like at the beginning, he wakes up and he's like, he puts on the news of like inauguration day, like before he went over there. There wasn't really like anything special about this panel. It was just one of those moments where I was like, this is really weird, like reading this right now moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it is also kind of weird how that feels like it wasn't that long ago, but it also feels like it was like 30 years ago.
Yeah, it did feel like that. Like everything felt like it happened. Like, yeah, it was so interesting reading this book.
What is that movie? Time, like it felt like 3 dimensions at once were happening. Because I was reading the book and then I was like, oh, this date, oh, this is about to happen. But then you're reading the book and then he goes back in time. So it was just like, it was like a hit you in the face of like, this is history repeating itself. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
All right, we can go to the next slide. Try to squeeze them all in before we finish. This one is also from early at the beginning. We talked a little bit about how it starts with the grandma and her grandsons meeting him. And this one I just liked because he's talking about how he did fine in school, but he wasn't a star student. And I just think that's really important that you can go on to be like a true icon who makes so much change if you just follow your heart and what you know you're good at. That obviously try in school and do your best work, but if you're not the top student in school, that doesn't mean you're not going to be super successful.
Yeah, I think she was saying that too, because I remember their grandmother made like a little quip about the kid. They're like, oh, he just, he doesn't
play too many video games.
Yeah, like tell him to stay in school and for him to be like, hey, like I wasn't great at school and like you're standing in my office, so who knows what will happen.
Yeah. All right, next slide. Celia and I both pulled this one out, obviously, about him loving the library. I don't know if you want to talk about what specifically you liked about this one, and then if I have anything else, I can add it.
It was just like when she says read everything. Like I feel like we would say that
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
I also really liked how he said it was the first place that he saw people that looked like him on magazines was at the library, because I feel like all of us in teen services, that's like so important to us to be able to provide teens with a really inclusive array of materials so that like every teen that comes into our space can see themselves and their stories represented. So it's just nice to see that acknowledged, that librarians care about that.
Thank you both for pulling this, because on the one I was like, yeah, I didn't get to see self-representation until I went to college. And even in college, it was like that, like, that minor of like, ooh, here are culture studies. Like, it wasn't like, the mainstream stuff. But then her saying like, children read everything. Like, it's the reason like I jumped from like criminal justice to library information science, where it was like, okay, like, there's so much out there and you're not going to just know from school. And like, I don't want to speak for everyone, but like our mission here is to like open things for you guys that like are not going to be as well, available other places. And I'm really happy that y'all brought this panel up.
I think later too, like he hears Martin Luther King speak on the radio or something, and he's like, "Oh my God, like who is this person?" And he's like, well, then I went to the library.
Yeah, I was going to say that. He talks about going to the library. I think even a few times he talks about like looking up things in newspapers, and he does all that stuff in the library, guys.
That might even be the next slide, maybe.
Oh, is it
something along these? Maybe.
He says it once or twice.
Like, the comic book, that there were comic books about Martin Luther King being written back then, which I had no idea, but that's such a cool parallel.
If BPL Steven was in here, they would know about that. They are archivist.
For sure. All right, I think maybe one more slide. I think we're going to be able to wrap this up just in time. And then there is an author talk happening right at 4, I believe. Right, Celia?
Yeah.
And Chris can drop the link in the chat to that if any of you guys want to go see a really cool author talk. This panel, I just like to end these things on a very light note when it is a very heavy book. And I just thought it was so funny, this image of him as a little kid going through a catalog, picking out the things that he wishes he could have. Yeah. Because I think a lot of us probably have really visceral memories of doing that. But like the teens that we're working with, that's probably such a foreign idea too.
Oh my gosh, yes. I remember in the Sunday paper, there used to be a giant Toys R Us catalog. And I would like look through the Toys R Us catalog and be like, what will I get that I'll actually never get? But if I could, if I had all the money in the world, this is what I would get. I'd get the Barbie car and
the dream house.
I'm such an animal lover that I was just so happy that he wanted an incubator instead of like
for the a lot.
I was like, oh my God.
I'm not gonna lie, it was hysterical that like the first third of the book was like about him raising chickens.
I love it.
That was amazing.
I loved it. And then he couldn't like, bear to like have dinner when one of his like
he even brought it back to like he went like was first time in a big city and he was like, and then there were chickens. Like, oh man, this guy loved him some chickens. It's really cute.
So cute.
All right. Okay. Make sure the Zoom link for the next thing gets in the chat. And then last slide is just our book for next month. And we'll finish up right at 4, I think. I have the Zoom link if we need it too.
I think it's in the chat.
Is it?
Yes. Nope, it's not. That was you.
I can pull it. So our February book is, all right, Chris is fetching it if you guys want to go. The other book is reading right now. February book is Reverie by Ryan Lasala. We will be meeting the third Thursday of February to talk about that. It's like a fantasy mystery of a teenager who wakes up and he doesn't remember how he almost died, and everything in the world seems weird, but he's not really sure why. So if you like fantasy or mystery or both, hopefully you'll like that. Some of us will be on stream for that. And thank you guys for joining us and dealing with our mild technical difficulties. I think it worked out okay.
And if you're really into books about activism, you can, and like today, you can read one of the good ones.
Yes.
And then come to our author talk on February 3rd with the two authors who wrote it.
That's that. And this is the link for the author talk that's happening right now if you guys want to go. All right.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.